We begin in the 16th century during the European colonial period. In 1582, a Portuguese ship leaves the port of Macau and is shipwrecked a short time later. The survivors washed up on an island where they spend 10 weeks fighting for their life against natives and malaria before being rescued by compatriots. The Portuguese then named the island Ilha Formosa, meaning beautiful island. Meanwhile, the Dutch are eager to expand their empire in East Asia and become the most important player in the lucrative spice trade, at the expense of the hostile Portuguese. In 1622, an invasion fleet of the Dutch East India Company set sail from Batavia to seize control of the strategically important Macau. In the resulting battle, however, the Portuguese are victorious, and the Dutch flee to the nearby island of Formosa. They quickly conquer the south of the island and build the fortress Fort Zeelandia in a bay called Taiwan. Formosa quickly turns out to be a good alternative to Macau. Situated halfway between Japan and Batavia, it is well suited as a trading hub. In addition to local resources such as medicinal plants and rare woods, the Dutch trade gems and spices from India with swords and silk from Japan. After a short time, the Formosa trade already accounts for 30% of the Dutch East India Company's total revenue. The Spanish, allied with the Portuguese, know about the Dutch success on Formosa. In 1626, Spanish galleys set out from Manila and reach the north of the island. There, they build forts and trade with the natives and spread Catholicism. In the south, the Dutch colonial administration exerts considerable influence on the culture of the natives. Schools are built everywhere, forcing the natives to learn Dutch tradition, language, and Protestantism. To maintain control, selected individuals are appointed chiefs in tribes that previously had no concept of hierarchy. Only the warlike natives in the mountainous regions remain untouched by this influence. In order to trade with the Chinese Ming Empire, the Dutch recruit farmers and merchants from mainland China and have them immigrate to Formosa. The Catholic Spaniards in the north of the island are a growing thorn in the side of the Dutch, which is why they begin to train the natives in combat. With the help of the indigenous army, the Dutch eventually managed to expel the Spanish from the island in 1642. But over time, more and more disputes arise between the natives and the Chinese merchants, who are dissatisfied with the high taxes imposed on them. This leads to uprisings, which are violently put down by the Dutch. The Chinese on Formosa are in regular exchange with the Ming dynasty on the mainland, which itself is facing internal problems. In the northeast, the Manchurians take over and proclaim the Qing dynasty, while in the center, peasant rebellions break out. The rebels take Beijing in 1644, forcing the Ming rulers to ask the powerful Manchurians for military help. The Qing troops, however, cross the Great Wall of China, invade Beijing, and seize government control. The Ming, along with their supporters, are forced to retreat to the southeast. Koxinga, a devoted Ming loyalist, defends the southeast coast with his troops against the Qing for years. Faced with a hopeless situation, Koxinga and the last Ming loyalists cross to Formosa, hoping to reorganize and retake the mainland. For 9 months, they besiege Fort Zeelandia, until the natives turn against the Dutch and help Koxinga bring down the fortress. The Dutch East India Company surrenders and leaves the island for good. Koxinga then establishes the feudal kingdom of Dongning, modeled on the former Ming Empire. In the following years, several famines occur in mainland China, causing many ethnic Chinese to migrate over to Dongning. Over time, Dongning troops start raiding coastal cities of the Qing Empire. The Qing eventually launch an invasion to destroy the rebellious island kingdom. After a long siege, Dongning surrenders, and the island is incorporated into the Qing Empire as a prefecture. Koxinga's followers are taken to the mainland, and immigration to Formosa is officially prohibited. At first, China pays little attention to the remote prefecture. From the 1750s, however, the assimilation of the indigenous population becomes increasingly important. Schools are built in which the natives have to learn Chinese language and culture. Buddhism and Confucianism are taught to eliminate European-introduced Christianity. Additionally, natives are required to wear Manchurian clothing and adopt Chinese names. Only the mountain tribes once again resist this process. Immigration policies are relaxed over time, and in the 19th century, another 2 million Chinese moved to the island, which now becomes its own province. By the end of the century, China and the Japanese Empire are competing for supremacy in East Asia. Japan, which has evolved from a feudal state into a modern industrial nation, is eager to end Chinese predominance. Eventually, a war breaks out for control over the Korean kingdom of Chosun. After many lost battles, the Qing Empire has to accept an unfavorable peace treaty. Among other things, China has to cede the island of Formosa to Japan. This shameful defeat leads to a strong desire for political change among the Chinese population. Movements against the Qing government occur throughout the country. Yet the exact opposite happens on Formosa. Facing the threat of a Japanese takeover, the island's upper class gathers and quickly proclaims the Republic of Formosa, bypassing the rest of the population. The goal is to lure Western powers to prevent the Japanese takeover, in order to ultimately reunite Formosa with the Qing Empire. But Western help never arrives. As a result, the Republic assembles an army of mercenaries to repel the approaching Japanese. Ready to take control of their new territory, the Japanese arrive on the island with an invasion force. After months of fighting, the mercenaries betray the Republic, pillage nearby towns, and escape to China. The founders of the Republic surrender and also flee to the mainland. Formosa now becomes Japan's first colony and is given the name Taiwan. With the aim of making the island an exemplary model colony, the Japanese pursue a systematic economic and cultural development. There is a profound intervention in the culture of the indigenous population, including that of the mountain tribes. Traditional practices such as shamanism are banned. Japanese education and religion are introduced, and the indigenous people are relocated to the cities, aiming to integrate the natives into Japanese society through punishment and reward. However, the natives increasingly oppose Japanese authority and start attacking Japanese civilians. The government bloodily puts down the uprisings and sets up reservations in which the hostile natives are kept under control by barbed wire fences. Meanwhile, popular discontent in China leads to revolution. The imperial Qing government is overthrown and the Republic of China is proclaimed, ending more than 2 millennia of imperial rule. In Taiwan, Japanese colonial rule is also accompanied by a major economic upswing and greatly improved living conditions. Railroads, tramways, hospitals, and schools for both Japanese and native Taiwanese are built all over the island. As a result, the population of Taiwan quickly grows to many millions. After 1915, there are hardly any more violent uprisings. Due to a political awareness, the population now uses peaceful demonstrations as a political means. During World War II, particularly men from Taiwan's indigenous tribes are drafted into the Japanese army and would later be celebrated as Japan's bravest soldiers. In the Republic of China, the nationalist Kuomintang Party, under its leader Chiang Kai-shek, has come to power. They cancel all treaties with enemy Japan and declare the reconquest of Taiwan an explicit wartime objective. At the Cairo Conference, Great Britain and the United States and their allies also join this goal. In 1945, Japan surrenders and is forced to cede its colony of Taiwan to the Republic of China. Kuomintang troops then invade the island, which now becomes a new prefecture of China. At this point, living conditions in Taiwan are much better than on the war-torn mainland. The Kuomintang is allowing many resources to be transferred to the mainland, leading to a rapid deterioration of economic conditions on Taiwan. Consequently, a black market develops, which the Kuomintang tries to contain by force. This violence leads to a major uprising in 1947, to which the Kuomintang responds with a wave of attacks on the civilian population. Ultimately, the government imposes martial law. Meanwhile, a civil war rages on the mainland. the Communist Party under Mao Zedong, once an ally of the Kuomintang in the war against Japan, launches numerous attacks on the nationalists throughout the country. With his People's Liberation Army, Mao Zedong overthrows the Kuomintang and proclaims the People's Republic of China. Faced with this defeat, the Republic of China retreats to Taiwan, intending to use the island as a base for reconquest. The geographical separation makes Taiwan the only safe haven for Kuomintang supporters, who flock to the island in masses. Fearing communist influence, Chiang Kai-shek tightens martial law, which now prohibits, among other things, the founding of any new political parties. The Kuomintang is now the sole authoritarian power, a situation not welcomed by parts of the population. Riots are put down militarily, and suspected opponents of the government are executed. Many citizens lose their lives during this period. However, the Republic of China's anti-communist orientation does not only have negative effects. Many of the newly immigrated Kuomintang supporters used to be among the elite in mainland China. Some of the best Chinese scientists and engineers now live in Taiwan. Thanks to the many skilled professionals, Taiwan is developing from a poor agricultural country into a modern industrial nation. Increasingly complex export goods are being produced. From simple textiles, the industry moves on to export bicycles and chemical products. Eventually, even elaborate semiconductors are developed and exported, making Taiwan indispensable to the global economy. Yet the economic boom is followed by a foreign policy crisis. More and more countries recognize the People's Republic on the mainland as the only legitimate representation of China, to the point that Taiwan even loses its seat in the United Nations to mainland China. In addition, the People's Republic threatens Taiwan militarily on several occasions. With even the USA, a longtime ally, turning its back on Taiwan, the Kuomintang recognizes the need for internal reform. In 1987, martial law, which had been in effect for 40 years, is lifted, and for the first time, new parties are allowed to form. A year later, the Democratic Progressive Party emerges as the first strong opposition to the Kuomintang. The DPP demands complete sovereignty for Taiwan, and unlike the Kuomintang, is opposed to reunification with mainland China. In 1992, parliamentary elections are held for the first time, and 8 years later, Chen Shui-bian is elected the first ever non-Kuomintang president. A Taiwanese identity grows among the population, and less people in Taiwan consider themselves Chinese. The path to independence seems paved, but then, President Chen's involvement in a corruption scandal comes to light, causing the DPP to lose the voters' trust. In the following elections, the Kuomintang wins, and Taiwan moves closer to the People's Republic of China economically and politically. As a result, society becomes deeply divided. Large protests are the result, as many perceive the rapprochement as a loss of identity and sovereignty. In 2014, protesting students even occupy the parliament building for 24 days. The following election is won by the DPP, leading to serious tensions with mainland China. Since the Republic of China's retreat in 1949, the People's Republic considers Taiwan a renegade province that belongs to the territory of mainland China, although it has never controlled the island nation. With its One China policy, the People's Republic has increasingly isolated Taiwan diplomatically. Today, only 14 countries recognize Taiwan as a legitimate representative of China. After numerous threats from the People's Republic, the world now looks anxiously to Taiwan, where a military attack seems imminent.